Hi, it's Jeff Altman, the Big Game Hunter, and welcome to Career Coach Office Hours for Friday, February 11th, 2022. Now, let's get clear. Next Tuesday is Valentine's Day. You know what that means. Don't be a jerk. Express your affection for the one you love. Do the right thing for them, okay? And you got time to purchase something for them, even if it's a card, you've got time to get that to them. So just a friendly reminder that it's getting close. Amusingly, my wife is away on retreat that day. I'm going to tuck a couple of cards into her luggage so she has them when she gets to her destination. So uh, welcome. So Tuesdays and Fridays at 9:15 a.m. Eastern, I take questions from people. I receive questions from people in advance. And I believe the first show in March, I'm going to switch to a 1 p.m. Eastern time to be more convenient for my West Coast people. I've gotten messages from a number of them basically telling me too early. So I'm going to make a change. 1 p.m. Beginning with the first show in March, whatever that day is. So I hope you guys stay in there with me and can find me at that time. I'll have lots of messages out. And I'll also say, if you've got a question for me, put it in the chat. I'd be very happy to answer your questions, okay? Now, I start off the shows with what I call a coffee toast. Woohoo! I've got a fresh cup. So the coffee toast is for those of you who care. You care about your work, you want to do great work, and you try every day. Trying is the most important thing because it's an expression of care, and you're trying to put in best effort. Like if you listen to the show, or any of my videos or podcasts, you hear me ending the show by saying, be great. I want to encourage you to be at your best, to put in best effort and not do things good enough. Good enough rarely is. Like good enough relationship with your wife, husband, partner. Yeah, right. That's the way you romance them at the beginning, right? It was good enough. I don't think so. So for those of you who care and show your care in the work, here's a quick toast for you. Thank you. And I've got a whole bunch of questions that were sent to me in advance. And if you have a question for me, and because you've watched this on YouTube or on Facebook or on LinkedIn and you found this, you can always email your questions to me at thebiggamehunter@gmail.com. I just ask in the subject line, put the phrase office hours. This way I can organize myself in advance of the show. And a lot of people have messaged me in advance. And what I try to do is answer questions about job search, hiring better, management, leadership, or advice about a particular workplace issue. So you can put those into chat. I'd be happy to deal with them today. And again, I've got a bunch of questions. Other than salary, what are some of the important items to negotiate? And they mentioned, I tried to get an extra week of vacation. I didn't get that, but I got $5,000 extra in salary. A parking spot in New York City. Can you negotiate vacation when the company has an existing publicized structured vacation based on years with the company? Non-compete agreement terms. Let me start with the last one first. And yes, you can negotiate non-competes. Someone I'd worked with for several years came to me, and it was only at the time he received an offer that he told me he was under a 1-year non-compete. I immediately sent him to an attorney who told him this was a non-breakable non-compete. An unbreakable non-compete. And that had been enforced by courts many times, and this guy was now stuck being unable to start his new job for 1 year. Now, his wife, who had worked for the same firm, had a 6-month non-compete. And when she left, They didn't enforce it. Someone else he knew. Matter of fact, he told me about 2 or 3 other people who he knew who had shorter non-competes. Never enforced. They went to direct competitors. But for him, it was a 1-year non-compete. Yes, negotiate that. If they don't want to bend, you've got a choice to make about whether you bend. As for other items, the parking spot in New York, yes, go for that. Make that an additional ask along the way. Don't do that in your first interview. Do that at the time when they make the offer and you determine whether that's a part of the deal. Sometimes you can get it, sometimes you can't. Negotiating a vacation, sometimes it's possible, but once it's a published structured vacation, the issue for them is the appearance of bias. Uh, why don't you give it to that white cisgendered guy and not to the woman or the gay individual or someone who's different than that person? And that's the bind that organizations have, which is why they put stuff in writing to avoid that kind of negotiation situation. Sometimes you're able to get an unofficial accommodation, like your manager says, if you need an extra week, I'm not going to pay attention to that. We'll work out when that is, and you're going to be covered here. The only issue with that, of course, is they leave and there's no documentation for that. That's why you want as much as possible in your offer letter as actual proof that this deal was struck. So, yes, it's negotiable. Yes, you can get a hiring manager to make that kind of an accommodation, and it's not binding on the next hiring manager who is going to shrug their shoulders and go, I don't know anything about this. And they're going to make all sorts of grumbling noises, and you're going to be out of luck. So negotiate as much as you can, get it into the offer letter so that in this way you don't wind up in situations that are problematic. And be prepared to walk away from offers where you don't get what you want. Identify those things that are must-haves. And if you don't get them, be prepared to walk away. It's hard, it's painful, and will you be happier resenting them because you didn't get that one thing that was absolutely essential to you? Okay, so let's go to the next question. What are the advantages of being a leader? Okay, that was a fun one. What are the advantages of being a leader? Generally, leaders make more money than staff. They make more money than managers. They have the privilege of leading and thus in the position of making decisions. They also have the headaches of making decisions and leading. What are those headaches? People who don't always follow and need constant persuasion. Dealing with their management who doesn't understand why things aren't being done in their particular way, even though the person's getting results. There are lots of headaches that show up. But the basic things that you receive as a leader is there tend to be certain privileges that go along with the responsibilities that allow you to justify for yourself why you have those additional headaches that come as part of the territory. And there are always unforeseen headaches. The person who resigns just at that moment when you need them the most. That person who transfers. The person who has a personal problem has to take a leave of absence just when you need them. Those are just simple examples, and there are thousands more because we're dealing with people. But the real thing is there are privileges that come with leadership in organizations, including higher pay, depending upon the firm, how the firm is structured. There may be superior benefits that come along with the leadership role that make it beneficial for someone to step into. How would the interviewer rate a candidate who's visibly nervous during an interview but knows their stuff? Less well than the person who knows their stuff and isn't visibly nervous. You see, when firms hire, they want to feel confident that the person they're hiring is the solution to a problem. And when you appear nervous, when you appear uncomfortable, um, when you are when you just don't present yourself in ways that inspire confidence that you're the solution to a problem, you wind up in a lesser category. I remember when I did recruiting, there was a guy who came to an interview and all his answers were correct, but the way he answered it every time involved hyperventilating, rubbing his palms like, and it was really uncomfortable to be around him during those times. And he's doing like Macbeth out damn spot, trying to get the blood out of his hands. And it was just pain. But all his answers were right. And the hiring manager just said, I can't be around this person. I'm really uncomfortable. And could you find someone else who knows as much as she does? And, and who doesn't behave in this way? So remember, when firms hire, they want to feel confident that you're the solution. And when you behave nervously and it's obvious to them, you don't do as well as the person who says it with certainty and conviction and gives them the right answer. So it's good, not best. And you know that. That's why you asked the question. You were hoping to hear something different, but I'm a no BS kind of guy. As a result, I'm not going to lie to you. You don't stand as good a chance, if any chance, as the person who projects self-confidence. Let's go to the next one. How does a company hire top talent on a budget? Hiring top talent is always a challenge. And when you add what I assume is a tight budget, it becomes more of a problem. So you have to give them a reason for why they should come on board for less money than they might get from another organization. Sometimes the way to do that is by having them buy into the mission of the organization, the purpose of the organization, the excitement of the work, the people they'll be working with. In other words, everything other than the money. So you have to be a salesperson and be personally persuasive in order to get them on board. You have to make them comfortable in the environment. So I'm assuming you're a startup, because when I hear about on a budget, I tend to think of startup environments without a lot of capitalization. Sometimes you can get students to work for you, but you spoke specifically about top talent. Top talent expects to be paid as top talent because they've earned it. After all, how much less would you take from the next firm to join them? When you're trying to hire, that's the question you have to answer for them. Why should they join you for less money than they could get from someone else who's further along in the process, better capitalized, and thus able to present themselves well and accomplish a lot? So the best way is to sell them. It's like talk to the hand. Well, what you have to do is make them see the other stuff and fall in love with the other stuff, so that in this way, they don't pay as much attention to the money. Also, single individuals, you stand more of a shot. When someone is married or cohabitating with someone, the other partner often is personally persuasive to get them not to do it. We got bills, we got stuff here. And it becomes hard to get them to do that. So I'm not saying avoiding married people, but set your expectations appropriately. Just going to remind you to put your questions about job search, hiring better, management, leadership, or if you need advice about a particular workplace issue, put that into chat. Also, At my website, thebiggamehunter.us, you can schedule time for a free discovery call, a coaching session, or visit my blog, which has more than 12,000 posts in it that you can watch, listen to, or read to help you find work more quickly, hire better, all the other stuff I mentioned earlier. I've got books and courses there and guides you can order too. Also, my YouTube channel can be found at jobsearchtv.com. No BS Job Search Advice Radio is available on Apple Podcasts. Spotify is a video podcast. Amazon Music, Google Play, anywhere you listen to podcasts, No BS Job Search Advice Radio is there. It's the #1 podcast in Apple Podcasts for job search. Carmela, no, I'm not checking it right now because I'm live, but if you've sent a message to me, let me take a quick peek to see if you've sent it over to me. I don't have it, so please put it into chat. This way I can address it during the show, okay? Let me come back here. Do companies do fake interviews without actual intent of hiring the candidate? Maybe just to show diversity in the candidate interview pool. Well, if you believe the Brian Flores lawsuit against a number of teams and the National Football League, the NFL did that. I don't know if it's true, just to be clear about that. But sometimes it has been done in the past because they've identified an external candidate that they want to hire who may need a visa transfer. And as a result, they want to demonstrate that they've tried to hire someone and they weren't able to do so using the existing pool of people. So I'll just simply say, yes, it happens. It also happens during recessionary times. HR people get worried about their jobs. And I'll just simply say they have to look busy. So they start scheduling interviews in order to keep busy and to suggest, like they interview far more people than they need to for jobs. And the result winds up being that they have to look busy so that the users they support, who are fewer in number during recessionary times, they're showing that they're putting in effort. Their reports have to reflect that. So I'll just simply say it happens. As for the diversity thing, I don't think it happens with any regularity. Firms are desperate for diversity candidates, and they want to, I don't want to say bend over backwards because that's not the right term, but they want to ensure that they have broadened the pool of talent to have individuals there and can demonstrate their commitment to hiring and having a diverse workforce. So I don't believe it happens with regularity in the corporate workplace, and I'm sure it does because there are always exceptions to rules, and I think that's what it would be. So Lino, if I'm interpreting this correctly, put your question into chat. I'd be happy to address it during the show. I'm not seeing anything in my inbox unless it went to spam. And nope, not seeing anything there. Let me just check spam. Nope, not seeing anything in spam. So if you want me to deal with this today, by all means, put it into chat. In the meantime, let's go to the next question. When applying, what's the hardest part of hiring top talent? I'm seeing a theme here. Hiring on a budget, hiring, and the hardest part of doing it, keeping them engaged, keeping them active, keeping them feeling fulfilled in what they do. Remember, from their standpoint, you've identified them as being terrific, great, top talent. And then you put friction in their way from accomplishing what they want to do or what they need to do. You start directing them and telling them what to do and how to do it. there's a Steve Jobs quote that basically summarizes that. To summarize it is, we hire, we don't hire top talent and tell them what to do. We hire top talent and have them tell us what to do. Keeping them engaged is the biggest headache problem that organizations have. It's not the identifying them, they can do that. But once they're on board, employee engagement is the issue. There's a statistic about employee engagement that the US has the largest engagement rate in the world, 32%. Catch that. 32%, approximately one third of the workforce is engaged. The issue is 68% are not. And that translates into some of them are actively undermining what goes on in the workplace. So, how do you keep this talent engaged? To me, one of the best ways is reduce friction that keeps them from doing what it was you've hired them to do. Doesn't mean they don't write a report, doesn't mean that, you know, there aren't tight deadlines, but there's institutional friction that gets in the way. Resources that aren't available that they've been led to believe exist. Coworkers who sabotage them. Trust me, I know about that kind of stuff personally. So the long and the short of it is keeping them happy so that you don't lose them is the biggest problem, challenge with hiring top talent. Let's go to the next question. Okay. When applying on LinkedIn, should you also InMail the person posting the job? Oh, man. So let me start off with, why do you want to get on the conveyor belt to the black hole? We're never, ever apply for a job through an applicant tracking system or any other system. See if you're connected to the hiring manager. If you aren't, then I know you probably aren't because your network is too small, you can search LinkedIn public profiles. And if you're not able to see them on LinkedIn, do a Google search and you might be able to get access to them in that way. Find possibles and then call them and say, I understand your firm is hiring for such and such. Are you the manager for that role? No. Could you point me to someone who might be able to help? Or to the head of the function and see if they'll point you to the right person? So, if you're looking for a developer job, you might look for the head of development. And you kind of work your way down from there. There are Chrome extensions that help you identify people. They've been changing recently, so I don't have a current list of them, but there are Chrome extensions that will allow you to get contact information. Now, if you decide to contact the person who is listed in the ad, instead of applying and going through that route, I was networking and heard you might be trying to hire a fill in the blank. Did I hear correctly? And they're going to be much more impressed that you cut the line through networking and contacted them outside of the conveyor belt, the black hole, instead of being a sheep, than doing it in the formal way. That kind of structured approach where you're flipping a resume across the transom and hope it gets through the screening system, not as good as a direct contact where they can hear your voice, get a sense of your personality, find that you network to them because it suggests that that you'd put some work in to find them and someone pointed you to them. And if they ask, who told you I might be trying to hire? I don't know if it's appropriate to mention their name, but I'll just simply say, yours is a firm I've been targeting for a while. I'd like to interview with and hopefully get to work for. So it seems like you might be trying to hire. Am I right? And then go from there. What's the best way to get hired after a career setback? Career setbacks are so painful. Just put my email address into chat because Lino's asked for that. My apologies. And what after a career setback, a career failure, number one, you've got to lick your wounds and start getting back into the game. If you sound wounded, it's less attractive. Contact people that you know previously, and thus they know your work. Get recommended for roles or recommended to people who do have roles available, and you can name drop the former colleague. And the result winds up being you'll get more results through that. And that's really the way to approach a setback. I'd also say you might want to talk to a coach like me or any other coach to help you overcome some of the emotions that relate to what I'll call a career failure, because that's the way you're hearing it. You failed. Maybe you got fired for performance. Maybe you got fired as part of a cutback, but no matter, you got fired, and that's the problem. Pamela, I just started a new contract gig and they will not train me. Okay. So why did they choose you becomes my first question. If you don't know what it is that you're supposed to know for this job, why'd you get hired? Well, maybe their courses on LinkedIn, because remember, there's the LinkedIn Learning that's available. Maybe there's a course on Udemy, UDEMY, that you can take that will bring you up to basics. And Lord knows there's a ton of material on YouTube that you might use to get ready for the new role. So put in some effort in advance. They want to see something from you, apparently. I think it's stupid that they won't train, but I also understand that you got hired because of an expertise they thought you had. And the result winds up being that they have an expectation you can deliver. So you got to do some work here. Next question. 2 months ago, I took a W-2 job, which is low paid outside my career field. But during the past year, I've been doing consulting in my field with my own firm. I want to go back to a high paying job in my field, W-2. Should I hide the low paying job outside my field from the resume and just say I'm still doing independent consulting since I have my own company and doing some minor part-time work through your consulting firm? So if I'm understanding this correctly, your actual full-time gig has been this crappy job. And you've been, in effect, outside of your main work for 2 months. If it's longer than that, I understand you probably took the crappy job because you've been out of assignment for a long time. So the way I would approach this is on your resume, I would be talking about your independent consulting. Let's say it's your own company and you'd say, I'll use my own name, the Jeff Altman Company. And underneath that, I'd say consultant. So they'd recognize it's your firm. If your firm is not named after you, you could do something like self-employed, contract consultant, doing work, and you continue talking about the major kind of work that you've been doing. I would dump the crap job. And if you're asked on an interview what you've been doing, I said, from time to, I'm just rolling off assignment. And in terms of work that I've been doing, every once in a while I do some trivial work for this organization, and you can put that in the resume under the contract work, like relatively low down. But the idea is to emphasize your primary expertise so that in this way, people are not confused. Just because you've been a consultant, there's no obligation for you to list your assignments chronologically. And then what you can do as a result, emphasize the primary work that you have done, want to do, and trivialize the garbage assignment. And that way you should be able to get through. Let's go to the next question. How do you hire? I'm getting this theme again. How do you hire top talent if you haven't shipped the product yet? Well, it depends on the role. There are people who develop that product, right? There are people who market the product. There's preparatory work that goes into marketing the product, selling the product. You know, they may you may want to hire product managers who work with the end user or the potential end user and the developers in order to ensure this product meets expectations. There's a whole bunch of functions. Like I wouldn't hire customer service people yet because you don't need them because you haven't shipped. But there are a variety of functions that you do need proactively that complement the process of creating the product that you can certainly hire. Let's go to another question. Do I tell a potential employer I'm waiting to hear back from other companies? I get the idea you're probably relatively junior, and I could be wrong, but what difference does it make if you're waiting to hear back? Seriously, what difference does it make? They haven't chosen you. And even if you said to them, I've been on 3 interviews at 2 firms, I'm close to an offer, they'll turn around and ask you, so why don't you just take one of those if you're expecting an offer? Why is it you're interviewing with us? And then you'd probably respond by saying, because I don't have an offer yet, I'm continuing the process. I'm just making you aware that I have 2 other things. There are 3rd interview stages. I may be getting an offer soon. Well, we're going to engage in our own process and not be rushed. And that's how it plays out. There's no percentage in it for you to throw up the fact that you're waiting for 2 other things and in an effort to try and make them move faster. I would simply say your goal is to make them fall in love. And one of the questions you can ask at the end of the interview is, when might I hear about next steps? Well, the feedback you'll generally get falls into one of 3 buckets. The first bucket is, you'll probably hear from us early part next week. That's okay. Another one is, you'll probably hear from us early part of next week. I would expect, I forget what the second one is. The third one is, you'll hear early part of next week. I'm sorry. Let me go through the buckets again. Number 1 bucket is, we have 24 more people to talk to, and we'll be back to you sometime in the next couple of weeks. Not particularly exciting. Bucket number 2 is the one I mentioned earlier. You'll probably hear early part of next week from us. Better, but because they're not talking about the 20 some other people that they're talking to. The third one is, you'll probably hear from us early part of next week. We'll want to have you talk with the director of such and such, the vice president. It's the more specificity you get about next steps, the more likely it is you did well, and then this will occur. Once they tell you what's going to happen and when you might hear back from them, you follow up by saying, so if I haven't heard from you by, you mentioned a day or 2 later, would it be okay to follow up? Then their answer is going to be either, sure, that'd be great, or wait. If we're interested, we'll get back in touch with you. And that tells you a lot. Okay, so telling them that you're waiting on 2 things, there's nothing in it for you. And just suggest amateurishness. Is leadership a gift or a developed skill? Yes. If you don't have it, you can develop it. It takes practice like anything else. There's no gene that anyone has ever talked about that is the leadership gene. It's a skill that maybe you developed intuitively in your relationships with your nuclear family. It may have been a coping mechanism as a way of trying to draw people to you. Maybe in sports, you develop certain leadership qualities where um, people follow you. But if you haven't demonstrated it in an early stage in life, it can always be cultivated later. This is the last question, by the way. How do I indicate that I've been the go-to person on a resume? So just to be clear, this person's a go-to person in their organization. They want to be able to express that on a resume. Easy. You have the company name, dates, title, that sort of thing. Somewhere in the body, if it's the current function that you serve, go to organizational, in quotes, go-to person for fill in the blank. That's it. That's all you have to do. Functions as the go-to person for all things related to. Another way to express it. I like the second one better than the first, but that's all you really have to do is say it that succinctly as part of ideally the first line of that company's section on your resume, so that this way people can see it and they recognize that you are a key individual or are a key individual for your firm. So I'm just going to say, if no one else has any questions for me to put into chat, I'm Jeff Altman, the Big Game Hunter. I'll be back Tuesday the 15th at 9:15 a.m. Eastern with more Career Coach office hours. If you've got a question for me, just email it to me in advance of the show at thebiggamehunter@gmail.com. And in the subject line, put the phrase office hours. This way I know what it's about in advance of the show. Also, I'm going to mention I've got a lot more. At jobsearchtv.com on YouTube. And it's also on Amazon as an app. And No BS Job Search Advice Radio. You can subscribe to both and get a lot of great information from me. My website, thebiggamehunter.us. You can schedule time for a free discovery call, coaching session. Visit my blog where I've got thousands of posts that you can watch, listen to, or read. Find out about my courses, books, and guides. There's just a lot there to help you that I've priced inexpensively. So again, thebiggamehunter.us. Connect with me on LinkedIn. Follow me on YouTube. Subscribe to No BS Job Search Advice Radio. On LinkedIn, you can connect with me at linkedin.com/IN/The Big Game Hunter. Mention that you saw this. I like knowing I'm helping some folks. And once we're connected, your network is going to grow a heck of a lot. Hope you have a terrific day. And most importantly, be great. Take care.